This is the Blackstar HT Club 40 amp. It's a full 40 watt amp with an option to put it into 4-watt mode for recordings. It's equipped with 2 EL34s and 2 ECC83s, but it's so much more than that. Let me show you. We'll take this step by step. On the left side, we have the clean channel. The clean has 2 different voicings. We have the US voicing. It's a super clean channel, and it's going to remain clean at whatever volume you set the amp. The second voicing is the British clean. If I had to describe the British clean, it's maybe a little darker, a little more mids, and it's going to tend to break up a little bit if you really dig into the strings. And depending on the voicing you're going to select, the 2 EQ knobs are going to act a little bit differently. Before we move on to the next channel, let's talk a little bit about the reverb. We're going to find that all the way to the right side. The reverb also comes in 2 different modes. In the back of the amp, you can select the type of reverb you want to use. You have the dark reverb, which is kind of a room reverb, and a light reverb, which is going to be a plate reverb. All right, let's move on to the second channel. And again, we have 2 different voicings on the second channel. We have an overdrive voice. Here my gain is set to about 3, and I can get some really cool blues, rock, vintage type of sounds. If I increase the gain all the way up, we get a really cool lead tone. Okay, let's switch to the second voicing. I'm gonna set my gain to about 8. And before I let you hear this, let's talk about this knob right here, the ISF, also known as the infinite shape feature. This is something only found on those Blackstar amps. If I set it all the way to 0, it's going to completely change the voicing of that channel. Set to 0, it's going to give you the type of voicing you'd find on a US amp. It's very predictable. You know what you're going to get. There's no surprises when you play with that. You set it to 10, now we're getting into the British type of voicing, which to me sounds warmer. You almost kind of hear and feel the tubes warming up. It's maybe more natural, more organic, and in some ways, maybe a little less predictable, because this is going to do something to the mids and the compression on that side. And of course, you can get a blend of both, adjusting this knob to taste. I told you that this is a 40-watt combo, which is plenty. I remember when I started playing guitar back in the 90s, in my mind, I needed to have at least 100 watts. It's not true. 40 is plenty to play in gigs, and anything bigger than clubs, you can always mic this up, or you can use one of the emulated outputs, which we're going to talk about in just a second. But if you're using this as a practice combo or a recording device, switch it to the 4-watt mode. It's going to be easier on your ears, but it's also going to allow you to crank this thing up all the way, which will add some harmonics that you're not going to get at low volume. So I'm going to stay with that 4-watt mode. Now, let's take a look at the back. That's where things get really interesting. In addition to what you'd expect from a combo amp, like speaker out, for example, or with the effects loop, we also have some emulated options. See, this comes with a built-in cab simulator. This button allows you to select the type of cab you want. The 1x12 cab, which I think sounds brighter, maybe a little more open, or the 4x12 cab, which to my ears add a little bit more mids. It sounds maybe a little boxier. And once you select that option, you're going to hear it through one of these emulated outputs, the XLR or the stereo jack output, which, by the way, also allows you to connect headphones. This allows you to plug the amp into a PA or into your sound card for recording. This is where things get really interesting. There is a USB out on the Blackstar. When you plug the USB out into your computer, It's going to act as a sound card. You're going to see 4 inputs in your computer. The first 2 channels are going to be the left and right of the emulated stereo output, meaning that you're going to get the sound of the emulated cab you selected in the back, 1x12 or 4x12. The third output is for the preamp output. No reverb, no simulated cab, which gives you tons of flexibility because now you're recording the sound of the amp, and as far as the cab goes, you can use all the different IRs that are available today on your computer. Here I'm using Torpedo 2-note wall of sound, and I've got to tell you, using your own amp with all those cabs is nothing but amazing. Finally, we have a 4th output, which is going to give you the dry signal, and this is great for reamping later on. And of course, you can use any combination of those at the same time. Here, for example, I am recording simultaneously the 1st and 3rd inputs via the USB cable. I'm going to pan my 1st input to the left. That input is for the emulated out, and here I'm using a 2x12 cab. On the 3rd input, I'm recording the preamp out, and I can tweak that using the wall of sound. So in essence, I'm using the same exact amp going through 2 different cabs all at once, and all that with the single recording. And here's the thing, typically these kind of amps that promise to do it all do one thing really well and the other not so well. With the HT40, Blackstar nailed it. It has so many useful options. They didn't load this up with unuseful features. Everything in there is super usable. They really thought it through. And if you know anything about amps, you know that Blackstar is not one of those companies that will just throw out something just for the sake of throwing out something. Yes, this is awesome for gigging musicians, but it's also an amazing recording device. I highly recommend this. If you're in the market for a solid tube amp that does exceptionally gorgeous cleans, amazing lead tones, whether it's US based or British based, the Blackstar HT Club 40 MK2 is definitely something you don't want to miss. All the tech specs are going to be in the description of this video, and I'm also going to leave a link for you to check out this amazing combo. Don't miss out on it. I highly, highly recommend this.